Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be here.
So today we're tackling a really fast-moving topic. Large language models, LLMs.
Oh, yeah. It feels like you blink and something changes.
Exactly. And specifically what the latest developments mean for, software developers out there.
Right. That's the key.
We're going to use this really insightful piece from IE Spectrum as our main guide for this dive.
Good source.
And we'll pull in some details from Google's AI blog, too, mainly to get the full picture on their newest model, Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Makes sense. Put it all together.
Yeah. So our mission really is to just cut through the noise, the hype, and give developers the critical info they need, understand where LLMs are now, and maybe anticipate how they'll shape their work going forward.
It really is amazing how quickly the whole landscape is shifting, isn't it?
It really is.
I mean, it feels like just yesterday, OpenAI was sort of the undisputed king. But like that IE Spectrum article points out, things are getting way more competitive. Especially when you think about the practical side, actually building software with these things.
Okay, let's jump right into that then. The main event. Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Yeah.
The Google AI blog calls it their most intelligent AI model. Big claim. And they keep saying it's a thinking model. What's the actual difference? For a developer, what does thinking model mean versus what we had before?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's kind of the core idea. Moving towards a thinking model like Gemini 2.5 Pro means it's not just about predicting the next word like text generation. It's designed to actually reason through a problem, to analyze stuff, make logical connections, really understand the context of what you're asking, and then make a more sort of informed decision before it even starts generating the response. The Google blog says this uses techniques like reinforcement learning and chain of thought prompting.
Right, reinforcement learning, chain of thought. We hear those terms thrown around. Can you give us a quick, practical sense? How does that actually change what Gemini 2.5 Pro can do for a developer writing code?
Sure. So reinforcement learning in this context basically means the model's been trained with rewards and penalties.
Okay.
So it learns to produce outputs that aren't just technically correct, but actually helpful. Outputs that align with what a developer is trying to achieve. Think of it like tuning it to know what good code or a useful explanation looks like.
Right, making it more useful, not just verbose.
Exactly. And chain of thought prompting. That lets the model break down really complex problems into smaller steps.
Ah, okay.
Almost like how a human developer would tackle a tricky bit of logic, step by step.
So it's not just finding patterns in data, it's actually trying to work things out methodically.
That's the idea, yeah.
The IE Spectrum article points out it uses self-prompting to reason through tasks. Puts it in the same kind of category as models like GPT-o1 and DeepSeek R1. And the performance, it seems pretty strong.
Absolutely. Both IE Spectrum and the Google blog really highlight how well Gemini 2.5 Pro is doing on benchmarks that matter to developers.
Like what?
Well, for starters, it's currently #1 on the El Arena leaderboard.
Okay, remind us what El Arena is.
Yeah, it's basically this public platform where people anonymously rate the outputs of different LLMs side by side. Human preference, essentially.
So topping that means real people prefer its answers, its code.
Exactly. It suggests that right now, based on how humans judge the quality, Gemini 2.5 Pro is often preferred for things like coding and reasoning tasks.
That's pretty significant. Now, the IE article does mention OpenAI's O3 briefly overtook it on something called Simple Bench.
Right, there was that specific benchmark.
Well,
But the overall picture, looking across lots of different tests, like common coding challenges, math problems, science benchmarks, Gemini 2.5 Pro seems to be consistently at or very near the top.
okay.
Google's blog points out it got a top score on something called Humanity's Last Exam without needing extra, costly processing tricks during the test.
Which suggests its base capability is just stronger.
That seems to be the implication, yeah. More inherent reasoning power.
Now, another big feature they keep talking about is multimodality. What does that actually unlock for developers in their day-to-day?
Right, so it's not just text in, text out. Gemini 2.5 Pro can understand and process info from lots of different places.
Like
text, obviously, but also audio, images, even video. And crucially, for devs.code itself.
Okay, so how might that work?
Well, you could potentially, say, show it a picture, a user interface design, and ask it to generate the front-end code for it. Or maybe feed it a video tutorial about an API and then ask it specific coding questions based on what was shown in the video.
Okay. So it allows for more integrated workflows, maybe more intuitive ways to interact with the AI.
Exactly. It opens up possibilities beyond just typing prompts.
And then the context window. This seems like a huge deal.
Yeah.
1 million tokens currently, heading towards 2 million.
Massive, yeah.
For our audience, maybe dealing with really complex projects, entire code bases, why is that so important? And maybe, really quickly, what exactly is a token here?
Good question. So tokens are basically the chunks of text concaved. The model processes. Think of them roughly like words or even parts of words.
Got it.
So a bigger token window means the model can take in and, importantly, remember a much larger amount of information all at once.
Okay, so translate that for a developer. 2 million tokens. What does that let you do?
Imagine giving the model the entire blueprint for a pretty big software project, not just one isolated file or function.
Right.
That huge window unlocks the ability to do things like code-base-wide refactoring, or understanding really complex connections between different parts of the software, or analyzing super long technical documents.
Without having to constantly chop things up and feed it little bits.
Precisely. It gets a much fuller understanding of the context, which should lead to better, more relevant suggestions or code generation for complex tasks.
Okay, that sounds genuinely useful for large-scale development. Now, practicalities. How can developers actually get their hands on this thing today?
Right now, the experimental version, Gemini 2.5 Pro Experimental, is available through Google AI Studio.
Okay.
The Google blog also says it's available for Gemini Advanced subscribers through the Gemini app.
So individual access is there. What about teams or companies?
For them, the key thing is it's coming to Vertex AI soon. That's Google Cloud's main machine learning platform. So integration into bigger workflows is definitely planned.
Good to know for future planning. Okay, let's talk money. The IE Spectrum article really digs into Google's pricing strategy here. How does Gemini 2.5 Pro stack up cost-wise against the competition, like OpenAI or Meta?
This is a really interesting point. Google's API pricing for 2.5 Pro is set at $10 per $1 million output tokens.
$10. How does that compare?
Well, IE Spectrum gives some context. Remember OpenAI's GPT 4.5, their previous top-tier model. Its API access was initially priced way higher, like $150 per $1 million tokens, before they pulled API access and made it ChatGPT only.
Wow, okay. Big difference.
A huge difference. Even OpenAI's newer reasoning model, O3, is listed at $40.90 per $1 million tokens. Still 4 times Google's price for 2.5 Pro.
And what about Google's other models?
Even Google's own, lighter model, Gemini 2.0 Flash, is way cheaper at around 0.40 hour per million. But for the top-tier reasoning capability, that $10 price point for 2.5 Pro, it's very aggressive.
So for developers worried about cost, especially if they're building something that uses the API a lot.
Exactly. High volume usage. This pricing makes Gemini 2.5 Pro potentially very attractive, performance and a lower cost.
Yeah, that combination definitely sounds like a competitive advantage. Now, the IEP suggests that maybe some recent stumbles from Meta and OpenAI might have helped create this opening for Google. What sort of challenges have they apparently been facing?
Well, according to the IAE article, Meta's Llama 4 launch, it was maybe a bit underwhelming for some. The announcement came out kind of unexpectedly over a weekend, which might have buried the news a bit. And there was apparently some confusion or controversy about the specific Llama 4 version that did well on El Marino rankings. Suggestions it wasn't quite the same as the main models people could access.
Ah, okay. Consistency issues, maybe?
Potentially. And reports also mentioned that even with a large token window on their Llama 4 Scout model, the actual performance on really long context tasks wasn't quite meeting expectations. Plus, initially, they didn't have a model specifically branded as their top reasoning engine.
So, a few bumps in the road for Meta's latest rollout, it sounds like.
A bit of a mixed bag based on that reporting.
What about OpenAI? They've been the dominant player for a while. Any headwinds for them?
Yeah, they've hit some turbulence too. That high cost for GPT 4.5 API access we mentioned, that got a lot of pushback.
Right, leading them to pull it from the API.
Exactly, making it exclusive to the ChatGPT interface, which is great for users, but less flexible for developers building on top of it. And while they have released more budget-friendly options like GPT 4.1 and newer reasoning models like O3 and O4 Mini, cost is still a recurring theme.
Still comparatively high for the top performance.
It seems so. The IE article even quotes Ben Lorica from Gradient Flow, saying that for reasoning tasks, he might lean towards DeepSeek R1 or Google Gemini, specifically because of the cost considerations with OpenAI's best models.
Okay, so those challenges, both for Meta and OpenAI, definitely seem to have created a window of opportunity for Google.
It looks that way, yeah.
And the IE Spectrum article really does emphasize Google's momentum right now.
Absolutely. The positive reception for Gemini 2.5 Pro, those strong benchmark results we talked about, it's getting noticed.
And the El Marina ranking dominance isn't just 2.5 Pro, is it?
No, that's a good point. The article mentions that if you look at the top spots on El Marina, Google models, including different Gemini 2.0 versions and their open-weight Gemma models, hold a significant number of those positions.
So strength across their portfolio. Seems like it. And again, that competitive pricing just adds another layer to their advantage right now.
It's interesting you mentioned Gemma, their open-weight models. The article notes they're gaining traction too. What does that signify?
Well, it suggests Google isn't just competing at the high end with proprietary models like Gemini.
Right.
The fact that Gemma is popular indicates they're also appealing to developers who maybe want more control, more customizability, or are working with different constraints where an open-weight model makes more sense.
So they're competing effectively on multiple fronts.
That's what it looks like, having strong contenders in both the cutting-edge closed models and the increasingly popular open-weight space puts them in a very solid position in the current LLM landscape.
Okay, so let's zoom out. Based on all this, the IE spectrum analysis, Google's own info, the competitor situation, what are the key trends? What are the big implications for software developers looking ahead?
Well, the biggest trend is clearly this shifting dynamic at the top. Google's really emerged as maybe the leading contender right now.
Driven by Gemini 2.5 Pro. Largely, yes. Its performance, that focus on reasoning, the thinking model aspect, and crucially, the pricing. It's a powerful combo.
And the timing helped, with the issues faced by Meta and OpenAI.
Undoubtedly, that created space for Google to really make an impact. We're also definitely seeing this continued push for more sophisticated thinking models across the board. And bigger, much bigger context windows seem to be the standard everyone's chasing now. That enables whole new kinds of applications, especially for developers dealing with complex systems.
So the models are getting smarter and can handle more information.
That's the goal. Now, obviously, OpenAI still has a massive user base with ChatGPT. That's undeniable.
Of course.
But Gemini's advancements really show it's an evolving, very competitive field now. Google isn't just catching up. They seem poised to play a major, maybe even leading role going forward.
Okay, so wrapping this up for all the software developers listening, what's the core takeaway?
I think it's this. Gemini 2.5 Pro is a really significant step forward. You've got strong reasoning, top-tier coding help, that massive context window, which could seriously change how you handle big projects.
And that competitive pricing.
And the pricing, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes Google a player you absolutely have to pay attention to in the LLM space right now. The stumbles of competitors just kind of highlight how dynamic this all is.
Right. Things can change fast.
Exactly. And maybe the final thought to leave people with, the provocative question.
Yeah.
Given these advancements, especially Gemini 2.5 Pro's capabilities and Google's pricing, how is this going to fundamentally reshape software development? Not just incrementally, but fundamentally. What new ways of building things, what new kinds of applications does this unlock for your projects, your workflows in the next year or two? That's something really worth mulling over.